always use the law school email.
And to you I was the goal you saw at the bottom of the stream. You were content in knowing it was there, and always will be, as long as you could hold for a second before it slipped free. I can't blame you entirely. I was well aware that she had a part of you to keep, but he came and tried to force, and didn't let love take its course. I can't give you my heart because I can't share yours. I can't say you let me down any less than I let you down. I can't say you let me down any less than I let you down. Placidez tuya en saber que ahí se quedará. Hay que aguantarse cuando todo se va a resbalar, A ti no te echo la culpa, piensa bien yo que guardaba, ella es parte de ti, pero te pasaste, te esforzaste, el corazón mío no puedo darte, ya que lo tuyo no se puede compartir. I can't say you let me down any less than I let you down. I can't say you let me down any less than I let you down. Fair, but I can't share. I came around what was rightfully her ground. It's not fair, but I can't share. When the princess is queen's crown, when the princess is queen's crown, when the princess is queen's crown. Oh, this queen with the princess is queen's crown, with the princess is queen's crown, with the princess is queen's crown, this queen's crown. Say you let me down any less than I let you down. I can't say you let me down any less than I let you down.
Next song is a cumbia. Don't be shy, you can shake your shoulders. Hey. Dice que el amor sincero puede hacerte muy feliz. Dice que el amor sincero puede hacerte
Dice que el amor sincero puede hacerte muy feliz. Por tus besos y voy sufriendo, no lo niego, anhelando tu cariño y su amor sincero. Y voy llorando por tus besos y voy sufriendo, no lo niego, anhelando tu cariño y su amor sincero. Ay, 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 un amor sincero. Ay, 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 es lo que quiero. Ay, 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 un amor. Dicen que aunque hoy yo llore, mi corazón late por él. Mañana será otro día y en los recuerdos del ayer. Dicen que aunque hoy yo llore, mi corazón late por él. Mañana será otro día y en los recuerdos del ayer. Por eso río, río, río. Por eso olvido, olvido, olvido. Pasa que ya el tiempo mató ese amor tan querido. Por eso río, río, río. Por eso olvido, olvido, olvido. Pasa que ya el tiempo mató ese amor tan querido. Ay, 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 un amor sincero. Ay, 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 es lo que quiero. Ay, 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 un amor sincero. Ay, 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 es lo que quiero. Yay, I think it's your turn to sing with us. It's very easy. You're gonna sing the chorus. It goes like this. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. All you gotta do
el alma más provinciana, huele esa limpia rosa temprana. Ave dejar al resto del río, son mis palomos, tu caserío. Guadalajara, Guadalajara, sabes a pura tierra mojada. Porque conservas agua del pozo y en tus mujeres el fierro hermoso. Guadalajara, Guadalajara, tienes el alma más mexicana.
Thank you. We're going to commence our program. And I just want to start by welcoming you to our Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. We are very excited to have to be co-hosting this. I'm just going to say a few remarks. I know that time is our most scarce and precious resource, and we're excited that you're joining us today to honor these trailblazers. Also, it's important for us to mark this moment. 2020 has been a really difficult year. We have endured multiple pandemics and have witnessed the impact of that on the communities of color. It literally has stopped us on our tracks. I think all of us and all the society, but particularly for healthcare workers. At the same time, we continue to show up and we continue to roll up our sleeves and we continue to do the work that's necessary to uplift our communities. And we know that for many of us, particularly for me, because I'm first gen, showing up would not be possible without trailblazing, without the foundations, without the roadmaps or the blueprints that these honorees have laid for us. And this is worthy of our celebration. I ask you to be present in the celebration in that spirit. I now want to introduce myself. I'm Brenda Pareda. I'm the Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the School of Medicine. I'm co-hosting this event with UNM Law Professor Veronica Gonzalez Zamora and with Camilo Romero, who's the founder of Regeneración Colombia. It's a peace-building initiative that launched in Colombia and it's operating globally that's committed to empowering the next generation of civic and cultural leaders, which we know desperately is what we need at this moment. We are a transdisciplinary and multivocal collaboration, and we welcome you today. We usually start our program with a land acknowledgement, and I want to make sure that this is not seen as a performative, but as a reflection about how we think about the land that we're on, from the past to the present and to the future. And it's important because we have the privilege of doing work on land that is not ours. So with regards to the past, it's important for us to understand that land theft has been going on since 1776 to the present. Indigenous communities, particularly in New Mexico, but really across the nation, have endured waves of colonization. With regards to the present, it's important for us to think about what we're doing to confront Indigenous erasure in academic spaces and acknowledge that we are all witnessing actual day genocide through COVID, particularly in the Navajo Nation. With regards to the future, it's important how we restructure about how we think about Indigenous representation, knowing that we have not seen greater than 1% in medicine or in any academic spaces. I ask that we reflect on who have been the stewards of the land that we benefit from. And in New Mexico, it's the Pueblo, the Mescalero Apache, and the Navajo people. I also want to acknowledge the sensitivity around these notions or these gestures. They necessitate consultation from Indigenous voices, understanding that Indigenous community are very diverse and that there's many approaches to a land acknowledgement. I also want to name that as we evolve our approach, it's important that we look at the impact of such acknowledgements. I then want to move on to honoring our ancestors and the people whose shoulders we stand. There are many freedom fighters and trailblazers so that we can be here. And so I want to make sure that we lift that up, because we know what happens when we're ahistorical. And then I move on to honoring our ancestors and the people, the missing voices due to historical and structural violence, particularly around Black and brown bodies. When I think about who are the missing voices, I think about the detained, I think about the deported, I think about the departed, I think about the caged and the incarcerated. But what I think about most is of all the wasted human capital and what we could potentially be if we centered those people more. I want to pass it on to Professor Gonzalez Zamora now. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. That was beautiful. Thank you all for joining us for this historic celebration. We're so thrilled that you're here watching live. Family members, colleagues, peers, people all around the country are joining us today to celebrate all of the people that you're going to learn so much about today and hopefully read more about in the program. If you haven't already, please download the program. You can find it in the chat on the right-hand side of your YouTube screen, which for you is, I guess, here. And then you can read more information. We will not have enough time to tell you about all of their really amazing accomplishments. So we've highlighted a few, but we hope that you will read more about them and learn from them and be inspired by them. We are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. As you know, it began September 15th and will continue through October 15th. We chose September 17th today in particular because it's Judge Frances Muñoz's birthday. So she's turning 90 years old today. And hopefully we'll be able to sing happy birthday to her before the program is over. We have been celebrating this Hispanic Heritage moment every year since 1968, and in 1988 is when it became a full month. Judge Muñoz was appointed in 1978, right in the middle. September 15th is a significant start date because that's the anniversary of the independence for Latin American countries, including Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. Mexico and Chile also celebrate their independence days on September 16th and September 18th, respectively. And of course, October 12th is Indigenous Peoples Day, which we celebrate here in New Mexico. So today we celebrate a small piece of the contribution of our people, right? There have been many contributions, as Brenda explains, some willingly and some not. But today we're paying tribute, right, to the contributions in medicine and law, to our multi-ethnic and racial communities, to our culture, to our heritage. And we're so fortunate to be able to celebrate our futures as well. These Latina and Latino giants have really blazed trails for people both within their institutions and outside of them. And I want to add a fourth C, right? We're celebrating community, culture, and contributions. But the fourth thing that I want to impart on you today is that we should also have courage, and we should celebrate the courage of these people in being first, in doing things that other people did not think were important or relevant, in sacrificing a lot of extra time to pursue these things that may not have been valued in many circles, and have done so really to create a better life for all of us, to create a better society, and to give more opportunities to up and coming people, such as those of us who are introducing them. And so I want to encourage you to have courage, both in small ways and large ways. In large ways, such as applying to medical school, applying to law school, encouraging your nieces and nephews, your primos, your primas, to go to law school, to go to medical school. These are really positions of privilege and power. And in small ways, I want to encourage all of you to participate in the election this year. You can, in New Mexico, register to vote up until October 6th, and no state has a registration deadline before October 4th. So please vote, take people with you to vote. We really want to continue the legacy of these wonderful people, and we can do that by continuing to have influence in our electorate and policy. So now I want to hand it over to our transformational leaders. We're going to hear from three of them. First, Dr. Martha Cole McGrew, who is the Dean of the School of Medicine. Then Valerie Romero Leggett, Dr. Valerie Romero Leggett from the Health Sciences Center. She's the Vice Chancellor for Diversity and the Chief Diversity Officer. And then finally, from my colleague, Serge Martinez, who is the Associate Dean of Experiential Learning and the Director of the Clinical Law Program. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I cannot tell you how honored and humbled I am to be here with all of you. It's such a testament to who you are in the world and your courage, and I just feel really honored to be here. I'm the interim dean of the School of Medicine. I'm excited to learn about the Trailblazers in law, and I'm so proud to be affiliated not only with the honorees in the School of Medicine, but those who are introducing the honorees in the School of Medicine. I have learned from every one of them. Dr. Helen Rodriguez Trias was the first Latina president of the American Public Health Association and a pioneer in American medicine and public health, especially in newborns and in mothers and babies with HIV and AIDS. And she said, I'm going to read this. No one is going to have quality of life unless we support everyone's quality of life, not on the basis of do-goodism, but because of real commitment. It's our collective and personal health that's at stake. In our country, so few Hispanic people are doctors and lawyers and professors in colleges, and we have to change that, and I'm committed to do that. Dr. David Satcher, in a visit to UNM several years ago, talked about trust in your healthcare providers as one of the social determinants of health. And who can you trust more than someone who not only knows your medical history, but also really understands deeply your cultural and ethnic history and the historical trauma that may be associated with that. We also know that research is more sound when cultural and ethnic considerations are included, qualitative data, and as Professor Montoya taught me, stories, along with the quantitative data. Everyone presenting here tonight, who is again one of my teachers, every one of you who's winning an award tonight is one of my teachers, and I feel particularly privileged to be part of this experience that even crosses Tucker with Professor Montoya. Part of being taught is being challenged and having open and truthful discussions. And so I say thank you to each of you for your influence in both my professional career, but also in many cases in my personal life. I'm so excited to see everybody here honored today. I want to learn something from everybody tonight, especially you law people. And my deepest thanks to each of you for influencing and changing our world. And how exciting and fun, the best music in the world, is it to be a part of this celebration. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha, for those wonderful words. I'm Dr. Valerie Romero Leggett, Val, and I am, as Veronica said before, the Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Health Sciences Center, and so very honored to be here with all of us celebrating these amazing people. So I would say bienvenidos, y buenas tardes, y felicidades. So welcome and good afternoon. Congratulations to our amazing Latinx Trailblazers and the next generation of leaders that are here with us today. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and ella, and I'm a proud first-generation college native New Mexican Hispana with strong roots in my cultural heritage. And I'm just so extremely grateful for my mom and dad instilling in me and my siblings values and ideals at an early age. And one of those, honoring those who have come before us and appreciating and acknowledging what they gave for us to have the opportunities that we have today. And so as we stop tonight to reflect on the qualities and the characteristics of Trailblazers, I think we're reminded of a few things. So, you know, a Trailblazer is a pioneer, right? They're going where no one has been before. And they're really considered a first in their area of expertise. And I know we're going to hear all about the amazing things our Trailblazers have done this evening as we go forward. But, you know, as leaders, they're pointing the way and they take the risks. They take the risks so that they can change the environment. And they have amazing vision for a different future. And then the determination, and as Veronica said before, the courage to cut through barriers and obstacles. And in so doing, they blaze that trail and they leave a path for others. And not only do they blaze that trail and leave a path for others, but they reach out to those who follow, right? They're mentoring and nurturing and guiding and uplifting the next generation. And in this case, I think, and Martha mentioned this as well, the next generation of leaders here, right, our presenters, Dr. Pereda, Diana Martinez, Veronica Gonzalez Zamora, Camilo Romero, and Dr. Sanchez. And I've had the honor and privilege with working with several of these alongside these leaders who really inspire me and give me hope. But the legacy of a trailblazer, I really feel, is found in those that they mentor. And it's just so imperative that we identify and uplift those who are making these efforts to affect change. It's really essential to our success as a society to pass the baton. We really all benefit. So I am truly inspired by this group of Latinx trailblazers and the next generation of leaders. And I think that they just work tirelessly with a sense of justice and equity, and they're just fearless in their leadership and passion and commitment. And always, always reaching out to uplift those who follow. So as we say in New Mexico, all of these Latinx trailblazers and emerging leaders are muy buena gente. So felicidades again, and congratulations.
Hi there, my name is Serge Martinez. I'm the I'm on the faculty of the law school, where I'm also the associate dean for experiential learning. And I am delighted to be here today on behalf of the law school to help get this thing started and to congratulate the honorees. This event is really exciting for me because it is also, represents another link in the long connection between the law school and medicine here at UNM, where we have for a quarter century had our own partnership that we call the Medical Legal Alliance, where we have worked together in a cross-professional model to help our communities through coordinated responses to community and individual and societal challenges by identifying social determinants of health that have a root cause in civil law and policy, so we can meet the needs of the communities we serve from a medical and a legal standpoint. And that's been going on for over 25 years, still alive and kicking and scheming for justice as we speak. So it's only natural that we should all be here together today, joining forces to honor so many amazing trailblazers and to celebrate their accomplishments. I'm just so impressed by every one of the folks that we're honoring today, and so delighted to be able to congratulate them and be part of it. Right, I'm one of them. I actually, have a personal connection to. She is a living embodiment of our Medical Legal Alliance, Professor Montoya, who is my friend and colleague, who I know has, as Dr. Romero Leggett was saying, been such a, not just a trailblazer, but served as a mentor to so many folks who are, professors, people who want to be professors, people struggling with being professors. And through her example and her incredibly high standards and mentorship, she has really just been an inspiration and a source of guidance and just support for so many folks. And so many have benefited from her. And all the folks here are doing just such amazing things and have really, really served in the same capacity. And it's a thrill for me to be part of this event, honoring all of them today. So on behalf of the law school, I want to say congratulations, felicidades, and I'm very excited to see what we get to hear about everybody today.
Thank you. We're going to ask Dr. Sanchez if he would say a few words and introduce Dr. David Acosta.
Good evening, everyone. It's truly a pleasure to join you today as we celebrate our Trailblazers for Hispanic Heritage Month. My name is Dr. JP Sanchez. I have the honor and privilege of joining the UNM family most recently. I'm a professor of emergency medicine, and I also have the opportunity to serve both Dean McGrew and Vice Chancellor Romero Leggett in a senior advisor role. So it gives me great pleasure, and it's a huge honor to recognize Dr. David Acosta as a trailblazer, not only for medicine, but for many others in the allied health professions. I've known Dr. Acosta for over 20 years. He is a trailblazer, not only because of his dedication in serving the Hispanic Latino community, but really as a diversity and inclusion officer, embracing what diversity means holistically. He's recognized for not only championing the inclusion of underrepresented racial and ethnic minorities, but on an equal level, he advocates for equity for women, for first gen, for those who are undocumented, and most recently, for those who were invisible for decades, those who identify as sexual and gender minorities. He's a trailblazer for not everything he's already done, but what we look for him to do and to lead us in the future. As you know, Latinos and Hispanics represent 18% of those people residing in the United States. But within our medical school, Hispanic Latinos only represent 11% of our current medical students and only 4% of our faculty. So I want to thank David for all of his incredible work, not only in guiding me, but generations of Hispanics and Latinos and other diversity individuals who've never had a voice or the visibility. So without further ado, please join us, Dr. David Acosta.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez, for that very generous introduction. And again, has it been really 20 years? It's clearly an honor to be here this evening with you. And again, I would first like to thank the University of New Mexico, colleagues and friends that I've had there for years, especially in the School of Law and the School of Medicine. And also want to thank the Generación Colombia for sponsoring this incredible event, so timely. As a Latino, I got to say that, you know, when my family knew I was going to be honored tonight, sort of the thing, they clearly asked me, "Are you going to thank me publicly?" But I only told them I have 7 minutes, so I can't put the whole list down, sort of thing. So I really asked them to forgive me, sort of thing, in that sense. But I think there's so many people that I need to recognize and thank who are really responsible for providing me the path, like the support, the many opportunities, for instilling that faith within me and reinstilling it when I allowed my faith to falter. And also the heartfelt love that I think all my colleagues, friends, and familia and community have given me to ensure my success. For without them, clearly I would not be standing here in front of you today. But I do need to mention a few people, and that is first and foremost, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Luis and Anita Acosta, my parents, who really knew the value of education. Both of them were taken out of elementary school to work in the fields, but they knew the value of education and hard work and instilled and insisted in me that I attend college. And truth be told, my brothers and I, and my 4 brothers and I really didn't have a choice. We were all going to go to college. So I honor them for that, but I also honor them for instilling in me the true understanding of and the importance of service, social justice, what family really meant and what community really meant, and my obligation to give back. I also be remiss if I didn't thank my wife, Sharon, who has also been my rock, my touch point, and my inspiration to keep going and never give up and continue in the fight. And in the spirit of tonight, I also have to channel my abuelita, Belén Bustamante, who used to be a yerbalista for our community. And at such an early age, she shared with me the knowledge, the value, the traditions of her yerbas that healed so many people in our community and allowed me to really witness firsthand what it meant to be an empathic and a caring healer that she was. And then how to apply that to understanding the care of the many Latino patients that I had the privilege and honor of serving and also learning from over the last 30 years. But tonight, I also think of our students and my mentees that really touched my life along the way, who have taught me many incredible lessons that have contributed to my journey. And I'm reminded of one of my father's favorite poems that I think is in alignment with the theme for tonight. that I often shared with them as well when they doubted if they could really join this road. And it's called Caminante No Hay Camino by Antonio Machado. And there's one specific line stanza that's inside it that I just read to you instead of reading the whole poem that I think really resonates for tonight. And it goes, Caminante no hay camino, se hace el camino al andar. Traveler, there is no road. You make the road as you travel. It's something that I had to do, and I know that many of you listening in and are present tonight also have done, because we simply didn't have the mentors or the role models that we needed at the time. But the last message I want to leave for tonight is so vital at this time, to really take the time and pause and lift up our future leaders. I mean, our children and our students as we move forward, to pass on the legacies and to share what we as leaders, have discovered, what we have uncovered, the truth. Not for the sake of blaming and shaming, but to inform us how we need to move forward and help create the path forward as well. As mentioned tonight, both pandemics, the COVID-19 and the racism pandemic, have truly unearthed and resurfaced many of the damaging and dehumanizing elements that continue to plague and impact our people. And the pandemic has taught us that our world will never be the same, and we all must prepare now for the future. Our Latino communities are suffering greatly from both pandemics, and many continue to remain invisible to society. But I believe that we need to come together as a community and commit to invest in our children, who will become our future leaders, that will strengthen us, keep us unified and in solidarity, and as we become the majority in 2035. So this evening, with the amazing number of honorees that you're celebrating tonight, we make visible to our children what is possible. So thank you again for allowing me to be with you tonight. And thank you again for this recognition. Please stay safe and be well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Acosta. I'm going to invite Diana Martinez to introduce Dr. Cacari-Stone.
Hola, buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Soy Diana Martinez. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I'm inviting you to join me on a little journey, a memory, a reflection. It's 2011. I'm a young professional, fresh in the policy arena, advocating for equitable education reform at the New Mexico legislature. Quite blindly, I should add. I'm thinking about going back to school, pursuing an advanced degree, right? Public health, law school, public administration. I care about upstream, really broad-reaching, equity-focused impact. I register as a non-degree student for a course in the Master of Public Health program here at UNM. The course is called Health Policy, Politics, and Social Equity. And for the first time, maybe ever, in my formal education, I felt seen. I felt that who I was as a brown woman, as a Latina, in the classroom actually mattered. My experiences in this course were life-changing, and that's not an exaggeration. You can tell by my emotion. It really was that course. Actually, no, let me be explicit. It really was that faculty member who changed my path toward public health as a profession, but more importantly, toward health equity, toward using policy as a pillar for advancing equity. My family and I continue to engage this teaching and this tool. Dr. Cacari-Stone has dedicated over 30 years of leadership in public health aimed at advancing health equity for diverse, racial, under-resourced, rural, Latinx, and immigrant populations. She brings real-life experience to understanding the social determinants of health. She is the founding director and principal investigator for a National Research Center of Excellence funded by the National Institutes of Health called the Transdisciplinary Research Equity and Engagement Center, the TREE Center. She leads the TREE Center in building team science and testing multi-level interventions with a total of 33 faculty, 20 underrepresented graduate students, and 6 staff from 17 departments, colleges, and schools. Lisa has received special acknowledgement for her ability to build multidisciplinary research teams and engage diverse stakeholders in testing interventions that bridge primary care with community health interventions. She's a thought leader in health equity policy and community engaged research. She recently launched an Equity and Policy Institute, which trains place-based teams in evidence-informed policymaking. Translational knowledge and products include equity policy briefs, digital stories, and policy dialogues. Her collaborative and scholarly portfolio is comprised of over $30 million in grants from private and public funders and encompasses the macro level determinants of health to the community level to the interpersonal level. So as one soul really indelibly impacted by Dr. Cacari-Stone's work and passion, true cariñosa, it is my deep, deep honor to present this trailblazer and using policy as a pillar to advance equity. My mentor, mi hermana, Profe Cacari-Stone.
Gracias, Diana. Muchísimas gracias. The best way to honor one's life is to see how your life has impacted other people. So you've given me the biggest gift back tonight. And I just think that so highly of you. It's also an honor to see your mother, Professor Montoya, on the screen. I mean, what intergenerational thought leaders and spirit leaders and educators and scholars you are. Thank you, Dr. Brenda Pereda, Professor Veronica Gonzalez Zamora, Camilo Romero, and the leadership of the School of Medicine and Law School. Thank you for bringing us together to celebrate. I want to just start with what is Journeys about? And I was thinking to myself earlier today, what's a trailblazer? I was thinking about cowboys, vaqueras and rancheras, but truly our job today, our role as leaders, Latino, Latinx, Latina leaders, is to remember the roads that have been paved over sometimes due to colonization, as Brenda mentioned, to remember who we are, to remember the journey that those who've come before us take. To the right is the photo of the journey of the Mariposa Monarca. I went with my sister to the journey of the Purépecha people in Michoacan 2 marches ago, exactly the time, the year before COVID. And to see the indigenous people there, my own people, spiritually believe that these are our ancestors. So I think that our ancestors have been those trailblazers. And somewhere the journey and the roads have been paved over or unmarked as a result of colonization. The greatest journey, as one of my teachers taught me, Elena Avila Curandera, who I studied with for 10 years, said, sometimes the longest journey we make is the 16 inches from our heads to our hearts. And I want to just mention public health and why health is that part that is so impassioned in us right now, is we see us growing to almost 61 million in the nation, and New Mexico being almost 50%, half the state, why Latinos matter, and why our presence, our leadership matters today, and to remember our journeys together. As we think about our role in addressing systemic racism and the challenges, intersectional challenges of immigration, the healthcare system, welfare system, language barriers. Although Latinos account for just 18.5% of the US population, we represent almost 31% of the cases. And in some places along the border and rural communities and other metro areas, it's even greater. We're not monolithic, we're diverse. And I think our journey is to remember who we are, but to bring that today. And I think Diana Martinez, I'm just gonna honor you right back because you represent that next generation. We are first generation proud. We bring that to each other. We bring that to remember. And what I wanted, these on the left is the journey of my grandfather's parents, white ancestors, European, English, Irish, French, who were farmers. My Uncle Walt sitting with my grandma there, who was out and gay in the 1930s and 40s. He was a trailblazer to my family and my siblings in Hawaii who are queer carencias. I also want to recognize my grandparents and the elders and ancestors in Michoacan. To the right is the place of the Gran Aguilar, the great eagle there in Paracho, Michoacan, where the Purépecha people reside. They came to the United States with courage on the journey, my grandfather, to work on the railroad. They lived in a boxcar in the Midwest. From there, they created a family and they created many of generations to come. There's my siblings in the far right corner with my grandmother, who had to quit school and education to take care of her brothers and always wanted to study. I am here to reflect part of that dream of hers. And my parents, Ramona Cacari-Stone and Lawrence Stone. My dad worked 3 jobs at one given time. He was a machine mechanic and retired with John Deere Harvester. My mother was a seamstress. When I was in high school, she waited tables. Hard work, always an endurance. And I, of course, want to recognize my partner, my love, my wife of 25 years, Roberta Duran, who together we can keep our culture, our heritage, and our core values in our home. Moving forward together, where we remember who we are. And I just want to read a poem to you that I wrote when I was on my journey back to Mexico to find about my ancestors whose all their records had been destroyed. We can't go to ancestry.com as Latino people. Some of this has been purposely destroyed. Be proud of yourself and all the beauty you have put into the world. Be patient with yourself. Love yourself. Embrace all the directions your circle in, moment to moment. This is who you are. Be at peace and at ease with the world around you. Surrender to all the lessons that come your way, for they are gifts from those who have walked before you. You have a path that is only yours, but you are never alone. Your essence is in the current of the water, your spirit in the wind from the north. Return home to rest. Gather your bundle and offer it to the fire. Dream with your soul and release your thoughts to the universe. Spread your wings and fly past the eagle to be free. I wish this for each and every one of us, Latinx, Latino, Chicano, Chicana, all of who we are. Gracias.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I guess I'll introduce myself, but because I'm going to introduce Professor Montoya. I'm going to start first with, just like some highlights of her accomplishments, and then I'm going to tell you a story. And so Margaret Montoya is a native New Mexican, born in Las Vegas, New Mexico. In New Mexico, we learn about people's character by the kinds of chili that we eat here. And so I asked, does she eat red or green? But actually she likes whatever is not spicy. So that's like a lot. That's a lot of character. I want to also highlight that she was the first Latina admitted to Harvard Law School. And if that's not a trailblazer, I don't know what is. She was appointed by President Gerald May as his senior advisor on affirmative action in 1992. So this really has been her life's work. She later joined the law school where she earned a tenure track appointment and then became tenured. Professor Montoya has taught clinical law, constitutional, torts, contracts, employment. But I think what is most impactful to me, and when I think about her legacy, I think about how she examined law structures and constructs of power, race, ethnicity, gender, and language in law. And that's really upon us to do on a daily basis. She also has worked her entire career on representation and on the pipeline and on other health disparity issues that led her to her position as a senior advisor to Chancellor Paul Roth, who was our last dean, who served for 30 years here at the health center. And she still holds an appointment in the Department of Family and Community Medicine as a working retiree. And I can tell you that I've never met a retiree who works as hard as Margaret to this day. She's also a critical race scholar and the founder and a board member of Latinx Critical Race Theory, which is something that changed my life. I also want to mention her iconic article, Máscaras, Trenzas y Greñas, The Unmasking of Self While Unbraiding Latina Stories and Legal Discourse. But this paper is so meaningful and on all the levels because it focuses on resisting assimilation that usually comes when you're in higher education, because we all learn that if you are under the radar and perform whiteness, you make it. except that everyone loses when we do that because we don't bring our full selves. Margaret has been married to Charles for 40 years. They actually met on a blind date. They have a son named Chuck and 2 daughters, Alejandra and Diana. Diana is married to Javier Martinez, and they have 2 beautiful children that you see popping in and out of Diana's screen. But I want to tell a brief story about when I met Professor Montoya. I met her in a mentoring program for faculty of color in 2013. I was a brand new faculty here, and my story is very similar to Diana's story. My relationship with her, she saw me as whole, complex, nuanced, and actually that gave me the courage to show up to my job as an OBGYN with all my assets, with my cultural wealth, with all of my identities as a new doctor, first gen, as a sister, as a single mom, as an immigrant, as a bilingual person, as a guerrera, because that's sort of what she emulates when you interact with her. I then quickly learned to translate and name my worldviews and then attributes into my professional assets and sort of the things that I would bring to the environment. These are the very skills that are necessary to transform any work in a learning space when you actually have the courage and the permission to show up as your full self. And I can tell you that in my 20 years of education, to finally meet someone who encouraged me to show up fully, and then to reclaim my ways of knowing, and then to have pushed me to apply them in my work, this is an experience of a lifetime. And I want her to know that. Every time I talk about Margaret and how she's transformed my life, I get emotional, but I want to share with you some of her questions to me, which no one ever asked because you have to be invisible to succeed in academia. But first she said, ¿Quién eres? Who are you? And that's like the best question that anyone has ever asked me. Then she said, what are you going to do with that fire in the belly? Porque esas ganas de cambiar el mundo should be cultivated and should be taught and should be disseminated. And I want to tell Margaret that I can't imagine my career without her. She radicalized me and she taught me how to remake the world for the people I love. So me and my children and the community that I serve, thank you. Mil gracias. Margaret?
Gracias to Brenda, to David, to Lisa. This is emotional for me. Pero comenzaré con gracias. Simplemente mil gracias. My heart is so full. It overflows with gratitude. The organizers, the descendants as they call themselves, Camilo, Brenda, Veronica, Diana, and JP have done a magnificent job with this event. But thank you to Martha, Val, and Serge, to Ana Trio, to the IT staff, to all who did the invisible jobs to pull this together. Events like this one can mark a process of cultural regeneration across generations of disciplines, scholars, y familias, with our stories, our memories, la música, la poesía. In Camilo's work on regeneración, I see a glow and I hear a summons. Ahorita, aquí mismo, estamos regenerando nuestra cultura. Gracias a los grupos Flor de Toloache, a Qué Onda, al poeta Levi Romero, your art and wisdom grace us this afternoon. An honor like this is amplified by the people that I share it with. I congratulate the other honorees and I applaud the work they have done on behalf of Latino, Latina, Latinx, Hispanic communities. Felicidades y feliz cumpleaños to Judge Muñoz. Imagínate, 90 years. What a life. Qué dicha. Our paths crossed 19 years ago at UC Berkeley. We were both at the now famous conference that then Judge Sonia Sotomayor gave her Wise Latina speech. In 2001, Judges Sotomayor and Muñoz were at the Friday-Saturday conference on the judiciary, and I spoke at the student conference. Why do I remember? Well, because behind me, you see the poster, that has been hanging in our garage all of these years. There are the names of the students who were there. Diana was there. Judge Muñoz, thank you for what you did then. Thank you for your persistence, for using your statue to open doors into the legal profession. Imagine, we're 31% of the population, but only 5% of the lawyers and 5.8% of the doctors. Like Judge Muñoz, Michael and David and Lisa are social escalators. They use their social capital to elevate others, and I'm honored to be in your midst. From my first days here at UNM, I had the advantage of finding Shri. It was an island of belonging in what can be a very harsh environment. At conferences, and Michael will remember this, in the early 90s, almost all of the Latino and Latina law professors could be in one room. These colleagues of mine reframed my understanding of myself and my world. At the law school, I found Christine Zuni Cruz. We became professors in dialogue with one another. And at LATCRIT, we created an academic refuge. And intimate friends nourished, nurtured, and challenged me for 25 years. We blazed these trails together. About 15 years, Chancellor Paul Roth hired me into HSC. Thank you, Paul. And I began to braid law with medicine. Brenda opened doors for me into reproductive justice. 10 of us created the Circle collaboration, but Brenda was our glue person, combining a vision for a just world, adding material resources, and then modeling over and over the practices that learners and peers need to know in order to be inclusive. She does it through her work. I've been blessed to know amazing students at UNM, at Harvard, at UCLA, across the country. We did a lot of work together. I'm remembering the class of 2010. I remember Maria Salas, Lynn Carrillo Cruz, may she rest in peace, Lindsay, Vero, Marcos, Raquel, Arifa, Daniel, Marco Felipe, Carlos. You gifted me in big ways and in small. I was born into a family that believed in the power of education. My father was in college and then graduate school until I was a sophomore in high school. But it was our mother who goaded us to excel. My high-achieving brother Ricardo went to Vietnam as a paratrooper and returned with PTSD and Agent Orange disabilities. War misuses talent. I shared a bed, breathed the same air, wore the same clothes as my younger sister, Maria Elena, from when we were babies through high school. While raising 2 children, first as a single mom, and then with John, Mari became a mechanical engineer, then an artist and a small businesswoman. She's the first one I looked to for approval. She introduced me to Charles Boyer in Mexico City 41 years ago. We fell in love, we created a home with Charles's teenage son, Chuck. Charles promised me rainbows. He talked to me about stardust. And then sure enough, our daughters Diana and Alejandra were born. We are a mixed race, multilingual family that spreads from DC to Pennsylvania, through New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, Chihuahua, Mexico to Hawaii and Hong Kong. The best of me, I owe to Charles, Chuck, Diana, and Alejandra, our extraordinary son-in-law, Javier, and daughter-in-law, Celine, our nieces and nephews. There is nothing like family. That is manifested for me in my role as grandma. I thought I couldn't love more than I love my kids. And then Marisela came, followed by Camilo. My grandkids are my present, they're my joy, they're my hope for the future. So it is for them and other children that I make this plea to you. Our democracy is at an abyss. We lawyers are stewards of democracy. We take oaths to support the Constitution. 4 times I have sworn to do so. We are not living in normal times. We must act to preserve what we often take for granted. And I would be remiss if I didn't exhort you to act. So please, please organize, vote, donate, get others to vote. This election is consequential. It's existential for our country, for Mother Earth, and for the children. Gracias, Brenda, a todos ustedes, a Diana, gracias y más gracias.
We're going to invite Mr. Levi Romero. He's going to do a poetry performance.
Buenas tardes, les de Dios. I have not felt this much corazón at one time by so many in quite a while. And I have to say that the last time I felt it, it certainly wasn't at UNM. So this is a beautiful experience to have in academia. And thank you all for carrying on in the tradition of your antepasados and bringing the corazón to these contexts where usually, as I think you said, Brenda, before, earlier, is that we almost don't exist and we can't exist as ourselves. So, bienvenidos, buenas tardes, les de Dios. I'm honored to be invited to be among such distinguished trailblazers, women and men who, through their professions, have served their gente en comunidad con honor, respeto y dignidad. We truly are the ones we have been waiting for, and no, we are no longer invisible. I'm dedicating this poem to the humble trailblazers, women in our lives, our mothers, abuelitas, tías, and curanderas, whose stories provided mentorship, consejos, y también regañadas for us to learn from. It is because of them that we are here today. Diablitos, ay, mama. This morning the dragonflies were fluttering above the pond. Diablitos, diablitos you used to call them. Yesterday at the nursing home, your hair tied up in a bun, rouge applied to your cheeks by the attendant, a dab of color to keep the day cheerful and young. I had never seen your hair done that way before. You were always so stubborn that years ago you would not have allowed it so. These days, your hair in a bun and your stories once long and complete, fragmented with no beginning, no middle, and no end. Good poems, all in that way. And how much longer, I wonder, before even they are gone, before you leave us alone and fluttering, our reflections rippling against the water, our aura settled across the meadow in colors of the dragonfly. No más Dios sabe cuándo, mijito, you've said on occasion. Death and dying, it's something we've only talked about occasionally in that loose form of broken structure and resolution, working its way towards nothing, reaching for itself. In that final gesture and calculated language that finds itself woven and looped up and under, in and out, until it's made its way through and through to the other end. A tapestry of the said and unsaid, of the thought about too much and of the dared not even think. What can one say? Death, life, living, dying. You tell a story that I find difficult to follow. And when you laugh at mid-sentence, I try hard to keep with the storyline and how it goes from a that to a this. But I realize that I've missed it again. Years ago, I would have thought that it was you and how you might have spun your story in a way that left the listener confused. the punchline coming in at mid-paragraph. But I see now that it's been me, us, a world around you that didn't quite catch the inside joke, the developing storyline, the drama, the mystery, the humor, the character unfolding. You had it all along, Mom, the poetry. Yesterday, the multicolored hairpins on your head settled like dragonflies, sprouted like the dandelions on the hillside. The sound, the reflection, the aura, the fluorescence, your voice, your tongue plopping against your bare gums like the sound of a pebble cast into the pond. You who never commanded an audience by intention, or so I thought, holding my ear to your words today as always. And then you break out into laughter at mid-sentence, between the sounds of a patient down the corridor screaming in a language that I can't understand. Verdad, verdad, you ask, nudging me, just to make sure I'm following along. Así es, mamá, así es. But I know I've missed it again. Oh, mama, I know I've missed it again. The poetry and the verse between the laughter and the sunlight, prisms of color dancing like little diablitos. Mira, mama, mira, los diablitos. Mira, los diablitos. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. I didn't give you the proper introduction, but this is Professor Levi Romero. He's an inaugural Poet Laureate and a professor in the Department of Chicana and Chicano Studies. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Mucho corazón. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
I'm going to invite Professor Gonzalez Zamora. She's going to talk to us a little bit about law as a pillar to advance equity. And she's going to introduce Professor Olivas.
Thank you, Brenda. And thank you, Professor Romero. That was beautiful. So I want to highlight for you just a few things about Professor Michael Olivas that are noteworthy. There's so many and it's hard to choose, but I think the most important ones are service. And you've heard this theme of service throughout the evening, right? That these trailblazers have not only blazed trails for themselves and asked questions and overcame challenges, but they've also brought people along with them, right? And what's really beautiful about Michael Olivas's legacy is that he has brought me along with him without maybe knowing it. He and I have not worked as closely as some of the other presenters and introducers, but I have chosen to honor him because I am now the second generation, so to speak, of junior faculty who are benefiting from his really wonderful insights and advocacy and work that he has done to help Latinas thrive in the legal academy. And I think he summed it up perfectly in a quote that he gave to AALS, our law school organization. He said, "I've set my own course and no one ever told me what I had to do." And I love that because I think it really captures his courage. He has often been referred to as the Dean of Latinas. In research that I've been doing about faculty hiring, I've come across his name so many times. And I thought of him as this really famous sort of celebrity. I kept coming across his name and his work and being really inspired. And a colleague of ours sent out an email and said, "Hey, there's a new professor who's a Latina. Everybody say hello and see how you can help her." And Professor Olivas was on that email and he responded almost immediately. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is Michael Olivas emailing me. What did I do to deserve this? And he said, "Hi, I'm here. I live in Santa Fe and I just want to congratulate you and see how I can help you." And I thought, oh my gosh, he's an hour away. How did I not know that? So I'm always really touched by the amazing, wonderful talent that we have here in New Mexico. And Michael has really, his legacy has extended far beyond the institution he worked at, which is the University of Houston Law Center, but also to New Mexico, to other places. And I know Dean Pareja has also worked closely with him, and I'll give you 30 seconds maybe at the end here if you want to say a couple of words, Dean. But I really, I'm inspired by his work, and I think of him really as a good troublemaker, right? the late Representative John Lewis really encouraged us to get into good trouble. And I really appreciate that Michael Olivas put his neck on the line, sacrificed, being popular maybe, or some harsh words in his direction, but all to help his colleagues, right? To help other Latinas get into the academy. And to quote the lyrical genius, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who says in the Hamilton musical, "What is a legacy? A legacy is planting seeds that you never get to see." So this is me here introducing Michael Olivas, so he can see me, the second generation of junior faculty, benefiting from his expertise and knowledge, and really advocacy for equity for Latinas in the legal academy. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll give it away to Sergio Pareja, the Dean of the Law School, to say a couple of quick words.
So congratulations. I too want to say Michael Olivas has been instrumental. The word trailblazer is an obvious word used to describe him, but I think of him as a cheerleader for all of us from the sidelines. And as you just described, from early on, right when I started teaching, I got messages from him, supportive and every step of the way. And it's kind of like he's secretly watching out for everybody, almost like a stalker in a way. Right? He's kind of knows what we're all doing at all times, but in a really good way, reaches out and offers us words of support when they're needed and says, "Good job, keep doing this. Keep on trucking." Usually there's some song lyric or something in the mix, some rock tune. So I'll say, "Keep on trucking." And I know he gets that reference. So with that, I really want to say we're super proud to see you recognized like this. Very, very well deserved.
Thank you, Dean. And I apologize. You were at another meeting, so you're just joining us late, but Margaret already gave her speech and received her award. If you'd like to also say a few encouraging words to Margaret.
Yes, and I'm sorry I came late. I was chairing a judicial education training advisory committee meeting, and I hop from thing to thing these days. Zoom lets me do a lot of hopping though, so it's kind of nice. But of course, I also want to congratulate Margaret Montoya, who I have worked with as a colleague at the law school and is also an inspiration for so many of us. And it is also, I will say, clearly a trailblazer, and absolutely wonderful to see you recognize this as well, Margaret. Congratulations.
Professor Olivas, would you like to speak?
Well, thank you very much. Try and keep me from speaking. Veronica, thank you so very much. I didn't realize just how impossibly young you are, which makes me realize that I started teaching in 1982 at a time when we had 22 Latino and Latina law professors, 5 of them at the University of New Mexico. And it was a very lonely time. I will say that I agreed to do this only because you assured me that you hadn't been talking to my doctors. And so I'm getting all these old man awards these days, which is certainly better than the opposite, the only the good die young kind of awards that used to come my way. You also promised I wouldn't have to say the word Latinx, which I think is a very generational term. And no one has used manito or manita, which is a term I identify with as a New Mexican. And growing up in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, and I'm the oldest of 10 children, I early on decided that I was actually drawn to a different profession. My first calling, my first preparation was as a student for the Catholic priesthood. I studied to be a Catholic priest for 8 years at the Immaculate Heart of Mary Seminary in Santa Fe, and at the College of Santa Fe, and then later at another seminary. And I started in 1964 when Vatican II decided to do away with high school seminaries. So every year I completed, they would do away with it. I took that personally for many years, that I was responsible for wiping out all these high school seminaries. And then when the College of Santa Fe closed, the conspiracy only thickened. I will say that I was fortunate in a certain way to be thrown in the deep end, because when you're on your own and you don't feel mentorship, and believe me, no one going through law school, and Margaret will certainly attest to this, no one actually attending law school could ever aspire to be a law professor because so much pain is inflicted that you have to have a certain sadomasochistic bent in order to say, I'd like to do that for a living. I will tell you though that I spoke with Margaret early on when she was working in the general counsel's office. And I remember her talking about this article that she wanted to write and she just didn't have the time. And I made some suggestions about how to carve out time. And she says, I'm on fire. I'm on fire. This story is burning its way out of me. Well, that was the way Margaret started. And she hasn't, as you can tell by the blazes in California, she hasn't slowed down since that time. She is still setting all of us on fire. And I will just say that the reason I left my studies for the priesthood was because it turned out I was so much better at afflicting the comfortable than I ever was at comforting the afflicted. I just knew it was a disaster in the making. And so I did turn my sights on teaching and eventually settled in as a law professor. And 38 years ago, I began, and I stayed at the University of Houston, in large part because I was fortunate enough to meet my wife, who is a Tejana, in fairness, but my father, who used to make fun of Tejanos, did tell me we were in a mixed marriage. So Margaret, while you entered into a mixed marriage of your own, and I love Charles, Tina and I did as well, and 38 years later, I just have advice for everyone who marries, and that is marry above your head, as I did. I will, and we also were very lucky to have moved from Houston, the center of the pandemic, where all those pendejos are running the state and discouraging people from wearing masks and terrible things, especially among Latinos, the scourge that is wiping out the Rio Grande Valley, or that end of it, to Santa Fe, where only 5 people have died from COVID-related diseases. And we were in Smith's the other day, and I counted 147 people, 143 of them with masks going in. We were at the post office, and 60 out of 61 were wearing masks. And the one guy who didn't have a mask ran back out to his motorcycle, got his mask, and got in line. It is why Santa Fe, at least among the state, that my home state, is doing so well, even with all the undocumented immigrants here, all the retirees, all the natives, all the poor people who live here. Still, people are behind a larger purpose. And I have felt like I'm in a priesthood of sorts where all of us are committed, at least in Santa Fe, as best I can tell, to a larger theme, and where we all understand that it's not my God-given right to be unmasked, because I do not have the right to make my abuelita sick or other people sick. And as long as we have federal leadership that thinks this way, it's going to be worse. So let me just say that I was asked the other day by a reporter, believe it or not, who called me because my time at Houston overlapped with Elizabeth Warren, and they wanted some stories. I think they were sort of looking up dirt on her. And I told them, I don't have any dirt. She was a wonderful colleague. She'd won a teaching award, and I sat in back of her class for a year to watch her, and I still take some of my tricks from her, although I'm not sure how good she'd be on Zoom, because none of us are very good on Zoom. I retired just in time. But someone said, I was told to ask you about the Dirty Dozen. And I said, well, I'm going to go to my grave with the Dirty Dozen, because for 14 years, we would choose 12 law schools every year that didn't have a single Latino or Latina faculty. And I'm talking about states like New York, where of course there's no Latinos, a city like Los Angeles, where you had to helicopter over 5 million of us to get to any law school, and there were none, and Florida, where the only Latino they had there was a retired Chilean who'd been general counsel to a Pan American airline, doesn't exist anymore. And we just decided we had to do better. And I will just say that plugging away and being willing to throw yourself on the barbed wire meant that we now have between 275 and 290 faculty. Remember, I started out with 22 of us. We now have that many. We have had 5 presidents of AALS, including 2 in a row, one of whom was also from New Mexico, Leo Martinez from Santa Fe. And yet we have fewer Mexican-American law students today than we had in the early 1980s when I began teaching. It's true that we have more what are called other Latinos or other Latinxes, but it just seems to me that when 60% of the Latinos in the United States are Mexican origin, we should have a lot more Mexicans going to law school. And it's not like we aren't needed. We're needed every single day. It's been a wonderful run. I cannot imagine a better life. I will simply end by saying, being from New Mexico puts me in exceptional companionship, as all of you surely know. And if you weren't fortunate enough to be born here, you made your way here. So you actually chose being born here or spending your life here. As I now retire in Santa Fe, in the city that I love, in the state that I love, the only thing that has changed for me, frankly, is not only getting all these old guy awards where I feel like Abdul Jabbar making the rounds where at every NBA city he went to, they gave him a rocking chair when he retired. That's sort of the way I feel. We got them all in the basement, all these awards and so forth. I have been a very lucky boy. And it's true that you have to make your own luck, but I will just tell you that being born in New Mexico and having family members who went to UNM, including my father, the first in his family to go to college, who graduated from the Anderson School, my brother who graduated from your law school, who just yesterday told me that his newest client was the University of New Mexico, where he's defending a case where the university's had a personnel out. The Olivas family is intertwined with UNM. And although I never attended UNM because I went to the College of Santa Fe as a seminarian, I have been an extremely lucky boy. And today is perhaps as great an example of that when I can be among people who I've loved for all these years, and to see the new people coming around who I know I'm going to love. And I devote the years that I have left to trying to work to increase our numbers. And thank you all for this honor. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm going to take it before you change your mind on a recount. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to now invite Camilo Romero to say a few words about the Honorable Frances Muñoz. Camilo.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. Can you all hear me okay? I hope so. All right. Well, this is a special occasion, not just for all the Latina Trailblazers and Latino Trailblazers, maybe even the Latinx Trailblazers, Michael, but in particular the fact that today on Judge Muñoz's 90th birthday, it's a reflection on our own impermanence here. Certainly COVID, the Black Lives Matter protests, which are generations in the making, that our moments here are quite brief. And certainly making the most of it, not just in the work that we do, but in the way that we do it. That's certainly the spirit of regeneración in our work for acknowledging and working through trauma that all of us, no matter how fancy our tenure or how fancy our schools, we all encounter in some ways, some more than others certainly, and being open to that in our work as scholars, as advocates, as members of families. And precisely that is in the spirit with which I present Judge Kika Muñoz, Frances Muñoz, who most folks call her affectionately Kika. And there's one story that stands out. I met her through church, of all places. Some of you may doubt that I actually hang out there, but one time she actually mentioned about her path to the law, to being a judge. Now, I certainly knew very few attorneys, much less judges, that were Latina or Latino. In fact, still, although certainly the little Zoom windows we see here, and those of us joining on YouTube, may be a testament to the fact that the law isn't as pale, male, and stale as it has been. But the judge told me something that I think still stays with me, which is that she never asked for permission. And I think certainly a woman of her generation, identify her with my grandma too, who's the lady you see in my background, Cristina Parada, and her pup Princess, that many times, particularly in our shoes, we can't ask for permission. And we simply have to lead by the corazón that I think my tío Levi Romero, with that last name, acknowledged earlier. So there are some words that Judge Muñoz wanted to share. Today being her birthday, she has a tight agenda. I brought her over to see some of the festivities happening in her honor, which includes a video that you'll see in a few moments. But she did share something a few years ago that I saved. I didn't tell her I was going to read this, but I'll read it to you all here. Frances admits that she has encountered obstacles in the pursuit of her career, mainly discrimination because of race and gender. And her response has been to remain focused. Her philosophy is, there will be those who tell you that you can't do it. Just don't give their opinion much weight. Know what you have to do and prove them wrong. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to Judge Muñoz, who will receive this recording with her family to view it. And if Tony Anderson, if you'll roll the footage, please. This was a few moments ago. So you can probably smell it.
Cha-cha. Cha-cha-cha.
Que cumpla otro 100.
Thank you for this honor, for this celebration. Congratulations to the real Trailblazers, you all who take time to celebrate our ancestors and descendants. Being the first is not as important as not being the last. The legal profession, particularly the bench, still has a long way to go to reflect our community. Perhaps then the contributions of our immigrant families will truly be valued. So let's be sure to vote on November the 3rd. Special thanks for your loving words to the families of Cruz Reynoso, Dolores Huerta, Derek Bell, Jenny Rivera, and Monica Guillena. And I don't know what to say about this mural. I've never seen my face on a wall. Thank you, Camilo and family, for including me with these poderosas mujeres. God bless you all.
Bravo and brava. So believe it or not, I think we're ahead of schedule on an agenda. That also rarely happens. So that means we all can join in this a cappella song. That's actually how I make my money, is as a lounge singer, but I'll have each of you join. We'll start with English, with the manitos and the manitas. Happy birthday to you. You're on mute all. Happy birthday to you. Unmute yourselves. Happy birthday, dear Kika.
Happy
birthday to you. Y 90 más, Judge Muñoz. Now, I think Brenda and Veronica were going to do the mañanitas.
I hope so.
Estas
Son las mañanitas que cantaba el rey David.
Hoy por el día de tu santo, te las cantamos
así. Despierta, bien despierta, mira que amaneció y a los pajarillos cantan, la luna ya se metió.
A- for effort. This was Pass Not Fail song, I think.
Malo eres.
Felicidades.
Where was she? What road was that she was on? Or what highway was that?
That's Costa Mesa, California, not too far from your ranch near Santa Fe. It's a mural that we're unveiling celebrating Las Poderosas, 8 women of color of California. And we started the first images of my mom, whose birthday was on Monday, and who's also not so happy with her image on a public wall, and Kika's, who's is today. The rest will be unveiling through September and culminating on October 12th, which is El Día de la Raza. So you're welcome to come.
That's wonderful. I hope you'll make it more publicly available. She really is a trailblazer. And I too, with Margaret, was at that room when Justice Sotomayor said what she did about wise Latino women. And not a single person there thought that was a remarkable thing to say. It was only later when Jeff Sessions heard that the world heard. She was in Santa Fe this time a year ago, reading from her newest book at the Chemo Theater. And it was wonderful. She stayed 3 hours to sign every book bought by a child. No adults, she said, no pictures with adults. And there were almost 400 kids there in the Chemo Theater. And she stayed for every single one of them.
So in conclusion, thank you for making this maybe the highlight of 2020. It's been a tough year. So for your energies, for your examples, for those of us that are watching on YouTube, for those of us that will see this later, maybe this will become an annual event. This was really just a labor of love on behalf of Brenda and Veronica and myself. And to all of you and those of us that can't join us in this life, the examples are the ones that we said here. So adelante y gracias.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And we'll be joined by Qué Onda, who has a musical performance much better than ours.
Good evening. We are Qué Onda, and we are honored to be here celebrating with you today. Thank you for having us. We hope you enjoy the next songs that we have for you.
Que rusas
have Amor de los Dos next. Vivir en el mundo con una ilusión es loca esperanza, sufrí el corazón, mi vida es tu vida, amor de los dos, tú me haces sufrir y lo pagarás, tú no tienes perdón. Perdóname si te he ofendido, perdóname, ten compasión, mi vida es tu vida, amor de los dos, tú me haces sufrir y lo pagarás, tú no tienes perdón. Perdóname si te he ofendido, perdóname, ten compasión, mi vida es tu vida, amor de los dos, tú me haces sufrir y lo pagarás, tú no tienes perdón. Next, we got a little bit of a more upbeat one for you. Feel free to dance. A medias de la noche te soñaba abrazándote conmigo, te soñaba abrazándote conmigo, pero ay, qué sueño tan profundo es el amor. ¡Ay! A medias de la noche te soñaba abrazándote conmigo, te soñaba abrazándote conmigo, pero ay, qué sueño tan profundo es el amor. Despierta, papacito, ya no duermas. Despierta de ese sueño seductor. Tomaremos copas llenas de licor, pero ay, duermas. Despierta de ese sueño seductor. Tomaremos copas llenas de licor. Pero ay, qué sueño tan profundo es el amor. Pero ay, qué sueño tan profundo es el amor. Thank you so much.
Otra, otra, otra.
Next up, we've got a song that we arranged ourselves from the original Cuando Calienta el Sol. Hope you enjoy. Cuando calienta el sol aquí en la playa, siento tu cuerpo vibrar cerca de mí. Es tu palpitar, es tu cara, es tu pelo, son tus besos, me estremezco. Cuando calienta el sol aquí en la playa, siento tu cuerpo vibrar cerca de mí. Es tu palpitar, mi recuerdo, mi locura, mi delirio, me estremezca. Cuando calienta el sol, cuando calienta el sol, cuando calienta el sol, cuando calienta el sol aquí en la playa, siento tu cuerpo vibrar cerca de mí. Es tu palpitar, es tu cara, es tu pelo, son tus besos, me estremezco. Cuando calienta el sol, cuando calienta el sol, cuando calienta el sol, 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 cuando calienta el sol. We've got one more, and if you know it, sing along with us. Este amor apasionado anda todo alborotado por volver. Voy camino a la locura y aunque todo me tortura, sé querer. Nos dejamos hace hace tiempo, pero me llegó el momento de perder. Tú tenías mucha razón, le hago caso al corazón y me muero por volver y volver, volver, volver a tus brazos otra vez, llegar y hasta donde estés. Yo sé perder, quiero volver, volver, volver. Nos dejamos hace tiempo, pero me llegó el momento de perder. Tú tenías mucha razón, le hago caso al corazón y me muero por volver y volver, volver, volver a tus brazos otra vez y llegar y hasta donde estés. Yo sé perder, quiero volver, volver, volver.
Yay!
Thank you so much for having us.
Pues como dijo Mickey Mouse, todo el mundo para su house. The celebration is not just a reminder for each of us in our own professions and spheres to celebrate each other, but also to recognize that there are those coming after us that we should reach out to, mentor, embrace in our own way. And since we are out of time, I'll just close by saying thank you to the University of New Mexico School of Law, the School of Medicine, to Regeneración Colombia, to all those who have supported this directly and indirectly. Like I mentioned earlier, perhaps this is the beginning of a tradition that we can host yearly. And we don't know what's going to happen now with life as we know it, with COVID and such, but certainly that we can celebrate each other is a step in the right direction. So, gracias y adelante.
Pues todos ustedes nos han dado un día bellísimo. You have given us a day to remember. This has just, I talked about, regenerating culture. You have shown how to do it. You really have. You have really brought joy to us, pride. You're the best. You're the best. Thank you so much.
Un abrazo a todos.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for this community.
Gracias.